you actually gonna put that in the oven?
Yep.
And why are you doing that?
Well, I want to be able to take it apart, but since it's sealed shut with this substance called butyl rubber, I have to heat it up to almost 300 degrees so I can remove the cover.
Isn't it gonna stink up the house?
Maybe.
You are so weird, dude. I'm going to the gym. Okay, no doubt I have some pretty interesting stuff to show you in this video, and I also have a couple of announcements that I think you'll find pretty cool. If this is your first time here, my channel is all about building up my 3-valve Mustang, and if you have seen this face before, thanks for coming back. But let's get to business by starting with a quick recap. In the last video, I attempted to give my Mustang a makeover by installing all new lights, a custom grille, and a California Special bumper. Some of you liked how it turned out, some of you didn't, but most of you fell somewhere in between. The main points of criticism were the blacked out headlights and the mesh grille, and many of you recommended adding a front splitter, a new hood, and even getting an entirely different style of bumper. And I wasn't satisfied with the results either. So after reading hundreds of comments and spending way too much time on Instagram looking at Mustangs, I ordered a few more parts and came up with a plan. The first thing I wanted to address was the grille. I didn't like that you could sometimes make out the original grille behind the mesh of the new one, so I took it off the car, disassembled it, and did my best to remove the remaining honeycomb with a reciprocating saw. Thought I did a pretty good job, but once I put it back on the car, I noticed that the clips that hold the grille to the bumper cover are super noticeable now. And yeah, I could probably black those out by sanding them down or throwing some weather stripping over them, but at this point I'm coming to the realization that I'm just done trying to make this grille work. There are aspects that I like about it, but it's time to move on and find something else. Which brings me to my first announcement. Announcement number one. I've started accumulating a good amount of unused parts, like my stock throttle body, pair of charge motion delete plates, fog lights, and of course this custom mesh grille I don't know what to do with. So I've set up an online store at 4eyes.shop. It's like .com, but it's 4eyes.shop because the .com option isn't available. Anyway, from now on you'll be able to find all my unused parts on there, most of which were barely used, like the delete plates and the fog lights. I've also added some items that will actually have some inventory, like my tortoiseshell Wayfarers that I like so much, just so the store is never completely empty. Obviously, any purchases help out the build, but no weird buy my merch pressure or anything like that. Now let's talk about the first item I knew I had to add to the car, a front splitter. It's kind of amazing how adding a little bit of black plastic under your car can really improve its appearance. But there's only a couple front splitter options available for the California Special bumper. There's a carbon fiber one from APR that looks the business, and then there's another from Carter's Customs, but on their website there's literally no description about it, so I don't know about that one. Either way, I want to maintain an OEM look if I can, so I decided to go with a factory GT500 splitter with the hopes that I can make it work with my car. Alright, even though this is a GT500 splitter, we could attach it to the bottom of the California Special bumper by adding a few extra holes and just sort of muscling it on there. But if we did that as is, this structural reinforcement here on both sides of the splitter would cause some bending or warpage along the sides because the California Special bumper would push down right here. So what I'm going to do is do my best to remove this. So after I spent a couple hours grinding it down, when we first put the splitter on the bumper, the nose of the splitter was being pushed too far down by the center reinforcement. So I took it back off the car and spent some extra time grinding down the center lattice. After I did that, the splitter seemed to sit flush along the bottom of the bumper, so we made a few holes and bolted it up. And since we were down there, we also threw on some side splitters to complete the look. The next thing I did was swap out the fog lights. Now look, the Raxiums are definitely a quality product that are easy to install. I'm just not stoked that the halos aren't exactly solid rings. There's a few gaps at the top that are pretty noticeable unless it's nighttime. So I found a couple alternatives from Diode Dynamics and Oracle Lighting. Diode Dynamics has a do-it-yourself kit that requires you to cut open the fog light, JB weld in their halo, and then drill a hole for the new wiring. And that's just a little too far outside my skill set. There's a pretty low chance I'm going to get that right the first time. So I decided to go with a pre-assembled pair from Oracle Lighting that have LEDs that go all the way around the light housing. And unlike the Raxiums, these don't wire into your parking lights. Instead, you connect them to a Bluetooth controller that then taps into your fuse box. This allows you to control the color and brightness of the halos with your phone. Agent 004 Eyes here, could you repeat that? This just in, folks, the Raxium Vector 6th Gen style taillights that were discontinued in 2018, well, they're back on the market. They've been rebranded under the name Spider, but as far as our team can tell, they're just a pair of Raxiums with a different sticker on the box. The good news is, they cost half as much as they used to. This was originally reported by fellow 3Valve owner Evan Daly. He's got his own YouTube channel and Instagram following, and in our professional opinion, dude's got legitimate style and production value. Check him out if you haven't already. Anyway, if you like the look of those lights, our team recommends picking up a pair before they sell out again. There's a link in the description below. Otherwise, back to you, Four Eyes. Okay, let's talk about the headlights. The tinted headlights were by far the most criticized change from the last video. And while I think they can give the car this cool stealthy look, I can definitely see where a lot of you are coming from. I respect the feedback. But I think the bigger question is who buys brand new headlights just to black them out? And that's a good question. And it all comes down to the tri-bars. You see, I've come to realize I don't think the S197 headlights are wide enough to accommodate both a large projector lens and a set of tri-bars. If you look at the S550s, you'll notice there's plenty of space between the lens and the tri-bars. While on these Raxiums, they're basically right up next to each other. There's just not enough room to make it happen without it looking cramped. And you might be thinking, well, if you feel that way, why did you buy them? And I really didn't feel that way until I saw them in real life on my car. So I thought maybe by tinting them, I could subdue them, make them look a little less busy, but it just hasn't worked out. You're not stoked on them, I'm not stoked on them. So what we're gonna do now is instead of tinting the entire headlight, we're gonna take it apart and just black out the tri-bars. Hopefully that'll give us a look we can both agree on. Since the headlight's cover is sealed to the housing with butyl rubber, we won't be able to take it apart by just removing some screws. So to loosen the sealant, we're going to heat up the headlight to almost 300 degrees. This is hot enough to relax the butyl, but cool enough where the components won't melt or get damaged. To get started, we place the headlight on a cookie sheet that's separated by a silicone baking mat so the plastic housing doesn't come into contact with any metal. Then we put the headlight in the oven and wait about 30 minutes. Now that the sealant is nice and hot, we can get to work removing the cover by wedging a plastic putty knife between the housing and the cover. We really don't want any sealant getting on the cover or inside the housing as it's really difficult to get off. Next, we take out the 4 screws on the back of the housing, which allows us to pull out the center panel. Then we remove the screws holding the LED strips and the tri-bar to the panel. Now that we've removed the tri-bar, which is just a single piece of plastic that acts as a diffuser for the LEDs, we're going to use some Krylon all-in-one spray paint to black it out. We spray from about 2 feet away and use smooth back and forth movements to ensure an even application. Then once the front side is dried, we repeat the same process on the back. And voila! After just a few minutes of painting, our tri-bar came out looking pretty good. Now we'll start putting everything back together by reassembling the center panel, but without the LED strips. Here we can see how the panel looks with the blacked out tri-bar, and it looks like the paint we chose matches really well. We place the center panel back in the housing and secure it with the 4 screws we removed earlier. Now we need to put the cover back on, but since the sealant has cooled and is less malleable, we use pliers to force the cover back into its groove. And finally, we reattach the cover clips and put the headlight back in the oven for another 30 minutes so the cover can properly set. Here we can see the headlight in its final form, and while I think it turned out pretty good, we really won't know until it's back on the car. And last but not least, the grill. So a ton of you recommended the Bullet grill, which I have to agree is one of the best looking grills for these Mustangs. The thing is I want to keep my fog lights. You know, 4 eyes, and although it's been played out by all the angry Jeeps out there, I do like how a pair of Halo fog lights looks on these Mustangs. So after looking at literally every grill option available, I actually ended up reverting to the stock grill. And I did it for 2 main reasons. One, my ideal grill, the grill that I see in my head is looking best on this car, just doesn't exist. And 2, after doing all that grill research, I definitely have a newfound appreciation for the look and construction of the stock grill. Sometimes it's just hard to beat factory styling and quality. I also got a matching honeycomb insert for the lower grill to give the Mustang a nice consistent look. But before I show you guys how it all turned out, I have one more announcement that I promise is worth hearing. Finally got myself a pair of 3-valve heads that I'm sending to Livernois to get ported. Going with the Stage 3 package that not only includes maximum airflow, but all new valves, guides, springs, retainers, all the good stuff. And in theory, when I get these back, should allow the Mustang to make around 400-ish wheel horsepower, but that's definitely easier said than done, so we'll just see what happens. And then finally, to manage expectations before I roll the final scene, I didn't get a new hood this time. And it's not that I don't want to, it's just that my body shop is 2.5 months out, and I'm not even really sure which hood I want. The timing just wasn't right. Anyway, please let me know what you think of the new look down below, and I hope you come back for the next one. Peace!